Welcome to the Disney Wedding Podcast. This show is brought to you by Carrie Hayward's Fairy Tale Weddings Guide, the only guidebook and bridal organizer tailored exclusively to Disney's fairy tale weddings at Walt Disney World. I'm Carrie Hayward, and each week I feature Disney wedding updates, money-saving tips, and interviews with wedding vendors and real Disney couples. I also cover honeymoons, anniversaries, and engagements at the Disney parks and resorts. Join me now as the Disney Wedding Podcast celebrates romance at Disney destinations. Today on the Disney Wedding Podcast, I am speaking with Kirbi and Dustin Love about their ceremony at Pandora in Animal Kingdom, with a brunch at Nomad Lounge in Animal Kingdom, and a reception later that night at the French island in EPCOT. I thought you guys would be interested to hear how they chose all these locations and how they planned everything and how it all turned out. So welcome, Kirbi and Dustin.
Hi, Carrie.
Hello.
Thanks so much for being on the show today. I always like to start at the very beginning and find out how you guys decided you wanted to have your wedding at Disney.
My family has been going to Disney for a really long time, especially when I was a child. We went probably every other year at least. So when me and Dustin got together, he said he hadn't been since like 2000 or 1999.
I think it was before Animal Kingdom was out. So yeah, so like the 90s, the early 90s.
So I planned us a trip in 2022 where Dustin actually proposed to me. So while we were there, I decided to stick it into his head a little bit and go over to the wedding pavilion and just plant that little seed of like, Disney is a possibility for our wedding. And so we did that, but then, we came home and looked at other venues. But then luckily I bought your guide and saw that prices in Houston were comparable to prices at Disney. And that's when we went with Disney.
That's awesome. How did your friends and family react when they found out where the wedding was going to be?
My family was stoked. They were so excited to go back. My dad probably hasn't been back in 15 years, and he was the first one to book. He was so ready to go. My friends were pretty okay with it. Some of them a little skeptical, but they were all right.
My parents were very, I wouldn't say not on board, but they were very hesitant. Since I haven't been back since the 90s, they also haven't been back since the 90s. And this is like everybody that we invited. So they all had a picture of Disney that once was and not what Disney is now. So they were pretty hesitant at first, but my friends were super stoked for it. I mean, they were like, that's going to be such an awesome wedding. But fast forwarding, my parents and the rest of my family, as soon as we had the wedding there and all of the festivities happened, they were completely blown away. So their opinions got completely swapped.
That's wonderful. Now, how many guests did you invite and how many were able to make the trip?
So we invited 80 originally. We figured about half of them would actually show up. And then we ended up getting 30 as our final count.
Got it. Did you set up a room block for your guests?
Yeah, we did. So we had originally gone the normal route with a deluxe, a moderate, and a value. Our value is Art of Animation, but due to some family requests, we ended up changing it to Port Orleans. And then for our friends, we really wanted a place that had good food and honestly good bars. So we had gone with the Grand Destino Tower at the Coronado Resort. And then we chose Animal Kingdom Lodge for our deluxe because it was close to the ceremony site, as close as you could get. And then it was a bucket list item for both of my grandmothers and my father to stay there. So I thought it was a good opportunity to get them a discounted rate at their dream resort. So those are the three that we went with.
How did you guys choose the day of the week and time of day for your event?
So with Pandora, it was you either go early in the morning or late in the evening. And we did go back and forth about which one we wanted to do. Ultimately, we went early in the morning. We had a couple of things that we wanted to do in Pandora, like the ride mix-ins, which wouldn't have been as fun at night, I don't think. And we also had a lot of older guests that we didn't think could stay up, I guess, for the later ceremony. So we opted to go with the morning time. For Sunday, we originally had it on Saturday the 7th, and then your guide told me that a DJ would be double the price in December on Saturday, so we moved it to Sunday.
Now, how did you choose these venues for your ceremony and your reception?
That is quite a story. Our wedding did not end up anything like we had actually originally pictured. Originally, when we had built a budget estimate through your guide, we had budgeted for using the wedding pavilion along with the American Adventure Rotunda and Italy Isola for the cocktail hour. Eventually, we realized we weren't going to get those 85 guests, so we changed it over to GM Lounge. And then GM Lounge was not available, so we swapped it to just Italy Isola with a UK after party. And then I showed Dustin actually a video of the wedding pavilion, and we decided that it really didn't fit us. And that's when we moved over to Pandora and added Nomad Lounge. And then when we actually were forced over to France via Disney because we did not get Italy, somebody else had a much larger reception than we did over there that day. So we were moved over to France, and then we ended up removing the UK altogether. And that's how we ended up with those spaces. But your guide was 100% helpful in that, because I was able to just pull up pictures and show Dustin the different locations, and that's how we were able to agree upon them when we changed everything.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm so glad you found it helpful. Did you guys use any outside vendors for the portions of your event that you were able to?
We did. We used, for my hair and makeup, we used Laura Reynolds Artistry, and I was blessed and got Laura herself as my hair and makeup person without having to request her. And she was so much fun to work with. 10 out of 10, I would absolutely recommend using her. For photo and video, we used Michelle Laxon. I had put something out in the Facebook group at one point and was asking about a split reception and ceremony, and she had answered to me, and I had actually already followed her on Instagram. And so when we connected, it was just kind of fate. She's a magician with a camera. She was so awesome to work with. We used Catherine Martell and Martell Event Services for day of coordination and dress steaming. Inspirations by Amy Lee for invites and save the dates, which she is on Etsy, and she also does have her own website. And then also through Etsy, we used Events Table Decor, and they were great because I was able to get non-traditional table numbers through them. We did a custom order, and instead of using table numbers, we used names of our favorite Imagineers on the tables to kind of tell a story to our guests, and so they turned out beautifully.
That's awesome. How did you guys choose your officiant?
It was a Facebook recommendation, and we got Catherine, and she was wonderful to work with. We talked to her multiple times beforehand. She asked us exactly what we wanted to do, if we wanted to add things. She asked about our story. She included our dogs. She included our son. So she included so many family elements to wind this Disney story together that she told at the ceremony, and it was great. I mean, she was wonderful to work with.
Did you guys add any kind of entertainment to the ceremony or the brunch or the reception?
At the ceremony, on top of the violinist that was provided, we also added the keyboardist, and then we were able to extend the time for both of them to come into Nomad Lounge and play while we were in there. We also had ride mix-ins at both Pandora and in EPCOT. When we did Pandora, we offered both Navi River and Flight of Passage. That way, people either with motion sickness or the older people could go to Navi River, and the thrill seekers could go to Flight of Passage. And then we also offered ride mix-ins at Epcot. We did Soarin and Guardians of the Galaxy, again, for the same reasons those groups could split. And then we had Mickey, Minnie, Chip, and Dale attend our welcome party.
Oh, that's cool. Where was your welcome party?
We had that at the Marina patio at the Grand Floridian.
Can you tell my listeners a little bit about how that went?
Yeah, it was actually super fun. We really through it because we had a lot of people traveling. So obviously my family and everybody I know is from Texas. Dustin and his family are all from Alabama. So with the travel, we wanted to not only give our guests a time to kind of relax, also get to see the castle because not everybody went to the parks. But Dustin hadn't seen his family, I think, in 2 years?
Yeah.
So we really wanted to have time for everybody to mingle and talk to each other. And then I really wanted characters, but we could not have them in any other space other than if we wanted to interrupt breakfast and have them in safari gear. But we were pretty set on having them in their Christmas outfits that we had them in. And the only place that we could get that was at the welcome party at the Grand. So that was another reason we had it.
For the welcome party, my family, so like I said before, my family was kind of hesitant about the whole Disney thing. But as soon as those characters walked out, everybody, child, adult, just lit up. So it was just, as soon as Mickey and Minnie and Chip and Dale walked out, everybody just instantly started smiling. And of course, we got the pictures, and Mickey and Minnie looked fantastic, of course, and Chip and Dale were goofing off, and everybody was laughing. Everybody got tons of pictures together, like family pictures. Me and Kirby, of course, me and Kirby and our son, multiple different combinations of people. And it was just a really good time to have them all get that little bit of Disney magic kind of back in their eyes. So it was definitely amazing to have the characters there.
That's such a great idea. For your events, your brunch, your reception in EPCOT, your welcome party, do you have any menu items or cake flavors that you would recommend?
Oh, yes. We have quite a few. So number one is the cheeseburger spring rolls. I feel like you have to have those no matter what. I mean, I'm probably not speaking for myself with everybody out there that those are absolutely amazing. I will say that when we did get them, they came with a different dipping sauce. So it came with almost like kind of like a yellow curry, and it was fantastic. It usually comes with, the Big Mac sauce. It's not actually Big Mac sauce, but it tastes like it. But yeah, that's usually what it comes with. And I was kind of surprised that it didn't come with that, but it was delicious nonetheless. So I don't know if that's a guaranteed thing every time, but that's what happened at ours. But it was great. The Korean spiced beef was fantastic. We had candied bacon and jalapeno deviled eggs. Those were amazing. We had the Le Cellier inspired steak. And for cake flavors, we got orange cake with white chocolate Grand Marnier, lavender cake with lemon and blueberries, and cinnamon cake with cream cheese icing. We tried to cover the scale of flavors for everybody to give everybody a little bit of what they might like, but also introduce them to some flavors that they probably have never had. But my favorite was orange cake with the Grand Marnier. I mean, that was amazing. So highly recommend that one.
Yeah, I was really shocked with the orange cake. It was actually very, very good. I was pretty skeptical about it when we chose to try it at the cake tasting, but it was very good. The other item that I'll add, those were all from our reception. The brunch item I will add is we, in order to meet our minimum, had to add something outside of the regular buffet item. So we added a crepe station, and that was fabulous.
That's wonderful. Did they have any restrictions at Nomad Lounge in terms of menu items that you could add?
They did not. Not that we were aware of, at least.
That's great. So can you give my listeners a timeline of how these events all fit together?
Our welcome party was on Saturday. It ran from 4:30 to 7. We then went back to the hotel. I took the quickest nap of my life and woke back up at 10 p.m. for Laura to arrive for makeup. At 2 a.m., Michelle arrived for photos and to go over to Dustin's room and get all of his photos. What time did you end up getting up and then going to Animal Kingdom?
I think I woke up at 1, so a little bit longer of a nap than Kirby, of course. But I woke up at 1, rode with Michelle over to Animal Kingdom, and got there at about 3 o'clock.
Yeah, so then we had a van that took Dustin and Michelle, and then it came back and got me at 3:30. From 4 to 5 a.m., we had first look and photos. The ceremony itself started at 5:30, followed by some family photos at 6 a.m. after it ended. From 6 a.m., it was supposed to be from 6 a.m. to about 7:15. We were supposed to have breakfast. Unfortunately, Flight of Passage had some issues that morning, so we did end up staying until about 8 a.m. and then getting on those ride mix-ins. At 9 a.m., we were all back to the resorts, and then Dustin and I both took a nap, another quick nap. At 12 p.m., Laura came back to our room to do my reception hair and makeup. At 4 o'clock, the bus picked us up from Animal Kingdom Lodge. Unfortunately, we were the first pickup since we were going to EPCOT. About 5:15, we arrived at EPCOT for security. And then we had 5:30 to 6:30, we had cocktail hour. And then we opted to take a small break in between cocktail hour and food. So we had dinner from 7:30 until about 8:45 when the cake came out. And then at 9:30 were the fireworks. And then after that, we went off to either Guardians or Soarin. And then there was another issue with the buses, but we ended up getting dropped off about midnight.
So I know I got there at 3 a.m., but while it was pretty chilly and also very dark.
It was 48 degrees outside.
Yeah. It felt like the biggest VIP treatment of probably my whole life. Like, so I'm coming out of this van. There's 3 cast members there to greet me. One of them has like the waving light up stick, kind of like at an airport. And they are checking in with each other and saying, that the groom has shown up, and they escorted me through the park and got to get a little bit of backstage viewing. But we basically took a shortcut and just kind of walking through the park with nobody in there at all. Just me and these cast members was probably one of the coolest viewings of the park that I've had of Animal Kingdom.
That's fantastic. Now, that might be your favorite memory, but if you could each share what your favorite memory of your wedding day was?
We actually have a combination favorite. So we were waiting for the guests to arrive, and they asked, of course, they asked the bride if she wanted to scoot around and hide so she can, be revealed so nobody could see her. And I wanted to come along too, because I just kind of wanted to hang out with her before everything got started. And we got to kind of peek and see the guests as they came in. And so they could not see us, but we could see them. And as soon as everybody turned that corner and saw all the lights and everything set up, it was just a collective, oh my gosh, look how beautiful this is. And everybody popped their phones out, taking pictures, and just hearing the reaction from all of them as they came around that corner was kind of the coolest feeling to see.
I think, although that is my absolute favorite memory, hearing those audible gasps was great. It made me feel like they were rewarded for waking up so early in the morning to get there.
My personal favorite memory, along with our collective one, was the first look. It was super fun. Of course, I had to look in a singular direction for about 5 minutes, and our photographer was like, do not look, do not turn around. And Kirby came behind me and tapped me on the shoulder, and I turned around, and you can see in our pictures how surprised I was, but she was absolutely amazing. So it really was that, in the collective was the best memory that I have.
That's fantastic.
I would say being able to be in Pandora with just the two of us and Michelle, taking photos and walking around again, despite it being like 43 degrees and freezing, was one of the coolest things that we've ever done. The other one that I'll throw in there a little bit is I got a lot of compliments at our reception about how much they could tell that we put their experience first, which was the only thing that I wanted to hear, because that was absolutely what we were aiming for, was to show people why we love Disney. So to get all of those compliments from a lot of the different people in our group was great to me.
That's wonderful. So Guest experience sounds like it was top of your list. Were there any other aspects of your event that were most important when you were planning?
Yeah, guest experience definitely takes the top of the list. Down to every single decision we made, it was all about the guest experience. The next two were we had photo and video were definitely very important with a wedding like this, with how expensive it is and you can only capture it once. We definitely wanted to make sure that we had the photographer that really fit what we were looking for, and Michelle did that perfectly. And then we really put a lot of time and effort into the locations that we chose. Even after Joe, who was our sales consultant, came back and said, hey, you're not getting Italy, you're getting France. I was pretty devastated because I really liked the view of Spaceship Earth. But what we actually did was we booked a trip out there to view every place that we had chosen. We went into Nomad Lounge. We went and sat at both Italy and France to see if during our reception time, if France was going to be a better option than Italy. And in the end, it actually was, because we did not like that the ambient music stopped for the candlelight processional, and it was so crowded in and around Italy at the time that France really fit our needs better.
And we could also see the ball. We could still see it from there. So it worked out.
That's awesome. Were there any aspects that were less important when you were planning, maybe where you saved your money or your effort?
We had an after party originally planned in the UK after we were done in France. And we ended up getting rid of that, as well as the DJ. It was a difficult decision, but we figured that with so many people getting up so early, we didn't want to kind of drag everybody out till the wee hours of the morning. It was supposed to start, I think, 11 p.m. Yeah, because we had to wait till the park closed and the last guest left. So we didn't want to keep everybody there and make them wait and then, let everybody know, hey, you can go home if you want, or go back to the resort. And then the rest of us are going to hang out. So we just felt like it was something that we could save some money on, which was a good bit, and just decided to get rid of the after party. In addition to that, we kind of made some food and alcohol choices based off of budget. We didn't want to kind of go overboard, especially for the welcome party. We decided to keep it to kind of like beer and wine instead of any kind of cocktails or anything like that. We just wanted everybody to mainly limit their drinking, so everybody got up on time and we didn't miss anybody. But also kind of just, we didn't know what everybody had to eat the day of, especially the welcome party. So we just decided to have some Mickey pretzels and mac and cheese and things like that with, some White Claws and some beers and some wine. So it was more of just a mixer style than kind of a buffet.
Got it. Okay. Did anything go wrong or just not turn out like you expected?
Yeah, so we had a couple things. Two were with the food. I think Mickey pretzels and the cold were not a good idea. They went pretty stale pretty fast. So that is probably something I would not choose if you're doing a wintertime wedding. And then I had requested at our food tasting a very specific scallop dish from Narcoossee's. And when it got on the BEO, it was the current scallop dish they have at Narcoossee's, which was not the right one that I wanted. I did email my planner and ask her to confirm with the kitchen staff. I sent her a screenshot of the menu and said, this is what I want, and I want to make sure this is what I get. And she said, yep, I've confirmed with the chefs. This is what you're getting. And then we ended up getting the current scallop dish at Narcoossee's. So I was pretty upset about that. I didn't ever mention it to Disney because it wasn't that big of a deal, but it did happen. We did have two issues with the rides. Like I mentioned earlier, Flight of Passage had technical difficulties that morning, so it took a little longer for us to get on, but we did end up getting a longer time at Nomad Lounge where they extended our buffet and allowed food and coffee to stay out, but we also got trotted through this big crowd who was trying to rope drop these rides at early park entry, and they had been held outside of Pandora at the bridge where it meets Nomad Lounge so that we could get in there first. And so our guides like took us through and weaved us in and out. And all of these people just had their beady eyes staring on you because they have now lost their rope drop experience because you are having it held for you. And then Guardians, we actually had an issue where they shut the doors too early to the pre-show. So like 7 members of our party were left outside the doors, and Dustin had to he looked around at people, and the cast member was like, I don't know what happened, and like ran around. So finally we just opened the doors ourselves and got them in with us. But the two big ones that happened with transportation, we had, and I have to shout out our planner, Hannah, because she worked so hard behind the scenes to make this happen. We had 2 guests miss the bus because they thought it was coming to their hotel room when it was going to the lobby. And so one of Dustin's friends called him and said, hey, we've missed the bus. And we were like, that's cool. We don't have any way to come get you. Like, you're out of luck. You're going to have to figure out either how to get here or you're just going to have to miss this. And our planner, Hannah, was such a blessing because she, without us even knowing, had already called the van that we had used to get brought to the park and had them go get those 2 guests. I don't know how she figured out where they were because we didn't say what resort they were at. She didn't ask any questions. It was just like, after we were done with photos, we were like, oh yeah, we had some friends miss the bus. And she was like, yep, we've already got them on the way. And I was like, what do you mean? So that was crazy.
I think we had one more thing. We had, so Soarin was pretty far from our reception. And so we had just asked to see if we could help the grandparents because they weren't up for walking that far after, a whole night of standing and a whole day of standing. So Kirby had reached out to one of the people that were there and asked if we could get some transportation to bring them over there. And they were like, yeah, of course. So they hooked us up with the bus and routed them over there so they could drive behind the scenes and get them to Soarin without them having to walk all the way across EPCOT.
Yeah, they initially were going to have them walk, and we were like, oh, I don't know about that. Like, my grandmothers are in their late 80s. They're not up for that walk. And so I asked them to just ask, can we use the bus instead of trying to have them walk? And within 5 minutes, they had it approved and everything was fixed.
That's great. Was there anything that seemed like a big deal beforehand or you were worried about, and then it turned out not to be a big deal?
Nothing really to do with the wedding, but kind of. It's more of like it was nerves for me, just because it was, pre-wedding nerves. But I was like, am I going to say the right thing? Am I going to goof up? Am I going to, all of the things that you think about beforehand. And when I walked down the aisle, I got up there, and immediately when I saw her walking, all of those nerves immediately went away. And it's like I had the most clarity that I've ever had. Everything was just a breeze after that. So initially, for a couple of weeks up until the wedding, I was kind of freaking out internally. But once it actually happened, it was no problem at all.
Yeah, and then I really obsessed about the rain backup locations. I was hell-bent on not having to use Harambe train station while paying for Pandora or I know people love the seas, but it was not the aesthetic we wanted, and that was where we were put for a rain backup. I probably emailed Hannah 18,000 times asking for different spots that we could use. She's like, nope, that's taken. Nope, that's taken. Sorry, it's a busy night at EPCOT. And I'm just like, oh, if it rains, I don't know what I'm going to do. And of course, it ended up not raining and everything was fine, but I obsessed over that more than anything else.
Is there anything you would have done differently knowing what you know now?
Yeah, there's only 2 things, and it goes back to the food issues we had. I would, again, not do Mickey pretzels in the winter. They just get way too stale, way too fast. It was literally, you pulled it out, and within 30 seconds, it felt like it had been sitting out all day. And then I would definitely have pushed more on making sure the scallops were what I wanted. We were quoted for a much more expensive dish than what we got, because what we were supposed to have had truffle and sage and pumpkin, and this one that we got was just lemon. Yeah, it was literally scallops gnocchi with a lemon sauce on it. So we were quoted for a much more expensive dish. And then I only asked once, and then it wasn't changed in the BEO. And I should have followed all the advice of like combing through and making sure everything was right. But in the end, it's not that big of a deal. It's just something that I would have liked to have had.
I see. Okay. Do you have any other tips or advice for future Disney couples?
I would say don't be afraid to explore all of your options. Obviously, we made very different decisions for how we originally thought that we were, going to handle this wedding. And I highly recommend visiting the locations that you're kind of on the fence about, or even just want to see, because looking at a picture on a screen is completely different than going to it. And like Kirby said earlier, going to visit Italy and going and visiting France, we wouldn't have known about the music and stuff like that. The little things end up meaning a lot whenever you're having your reception. So I would recommend trying to get to Disney at some point before, while you're making all these decisions, make it a little vacation, maybe go out there for the weekend, wrap in your cake tasting if you're looking to do the cake tasting beforehand, and just kind of go look at all these places that may be on your list, may not be on your list, because you could easily change your mind. So just don't have anything set in stone until you really check these places out, because I think you'll be surprised.
Yeah, and then I would say don't be afraid to ask for what you want or what you need. Like I said with the buses, it was something that if I hadn't asked, my poor grandmothers would have been hiking across the park, and they fixed that problem within literally 5 minutes with an approval. And then be prepared for some last minute issues, but just know that Disney is going to take care of you. I know that a lot of people don't get the blessing of having their planner at their wedding with them. Luckily ours was, and Hannah was the most amazing planner. If you have her, then know that you are in good hands, because she's going to take care of you.
Yeah, I would say Disney took care of us like kings and queens. I mean, they really did everything that they could to make sure that there were the least amount of issues. And if there were issues, they were taken care of immediately. Like, just everybody is working in the background to make sure that us and our guests had the best possible experience. And our guests even saw that. So they saw that firsthand, and they've mentioned it countless times that they were like, I had no idea that they went through this amount of detail to get you exactly what you want. So they were super impressed.
And also buy the guide. 100% buy the guide. I would not have had a Disney wedding without the guide, because I would have never convinced him that it was similarly priced to venues here in Houston. So also it was a lifesaver for budgeting. We were able to exclude things or include things almost exclusively based on your guide. So that 100%, like, if you don't have it, get it.
Yeah, we reviewed it several times. I mean, a year out, 9 months out, 8 months out, 7 months out, like, just constantly looking to see, how to kind of min-max the whole deal while getting the best experience possible. So it was incredibly helpful. From a person that isn't apt at all the Disney things, it definitely helped me kind of help us make better decisions. So it was greatly appreciated.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm so glad you found it helpful. Well, Dustin and Kirby, I think you've offered a lot of great tips and advice for anyone who's interested in getting married or having a vow renewal at Walt Disney World, and I appreciate your taking the time.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much.
That's our show for today. I'm your host, Carrie Hayward, inviting you to join me again next week for another episode of the Disney Wedding Podcast. Past shows and tons of photos for each episode are available on my website, DisneyWeddingPodcast.com, or listen in your favorite podcast app. And for instant answers to all your Walt Disney World wedding questions, check out Carrie Hayward's Fairy Tale Weddings Guide, available as an interactive ebook with continual free updates at fairytaleweddingsguide.com.